Hello everybody, starting from this video, we're going to start to learn chapter 8, economic analysis of a financial structure. And so before we look at the learning objective, and I want you to look at these two pictures. So they are showing the same houses, so the two-bedroom apartment. And so can you make a guess if this house, this apartment is sold in New York City, how much is it? And also, how about it's sold in Shanghai in China, how much is it? Okay, let me review the answer. So actually, on average, the two-bedroom house apartment in New York City cost $1.7 million. It's very expensive, so very expensive. Compare the housing price in New York City with the E-rate, and you will notice that New York City's houses are much more expensive. So why I want to point this out? Because I want to mention how expensive in China. So in China, it will cost 725,000 yuan dollars, 7,000 $25,000. So it seems like it's kind of cheaper than New York City, right? New York City, but we are not learning. We are not trying to explain what is exchange rate here or PPP. Here we actually trying to understand how the local domestic people are feeling about this housing price. So in the New York City, so the median income is around $52,000 a year, $52,000 a year. So which means, but however, in China, in Shanghai, the median income is around 1,300,620 dollars a year. That's a huge difference because in order to afford this apartment, and you understand that this housing price is 32 times salary of your average New Yorker. However, that will become 50 times salary of the average Chinese. So this is such huge differences. So why the Chinese house is so expensive compared with the United States? So you might say, okay, maybe because China has a lot of large population. Yeah, that might be one of the reasons. However, if you really get opportunity to go to China, and you will notice that there are a lot of abandoned land, people can build houses there, and then they do have a lot of houses there. They are actually empty, so which means they do have enough supply. But why we have such a shortage and why the price is so high? So one of the main reason is because think about when the people getting rich in the United States. So if you will be able to afford your necessity like a house and the food, cars, and then your actual money will be invested in the financial market. Maybe you're gonna buy the bond, or you put in the banks, try to open a saving account, etc. So you have so many different channels to allow you to invest your actual money. And we learn a good financial system allow people who need money quickly get money from who have actual money. So however, it's a different story in China. So China has a financial market, but that financial market is not mature. So it is still developing. It is still developing. And people find, especially people who have actual money, they notice that it's really hard to find a place to invest their actual money, the money they have, actual money. And plus, if they just put it at home, China has very high inflation, which means if you just put the money under your pillow, or keep in your pocket, so next day your money is not will not value that much. So they have relatively high inflation rate as well. So people looking for the channel to be able to invest their actual money. So where is it? So that becomes real estate market. So you will notice that if you know the Chinese friend, and they're actually going to tell you, oh, it's so sad being a man in China because if you want to have a wife, the number one requirement from lady and from the lady's family is you should have your own house. But if you look at the price of the house, actually it's really expensive to own a house in China. And in order to solve their problem, from my perspective, is to develop a healthy financial market. So in this chapter, we're going to use the US as an example. We want to look at how a healthy financial market look like. And after this video, next week, what we're going to learn actually going to focus on the financial market. And you will look at even the healthiest financial market we can have. Sometimes they will sick. And if that's the case, how we're going to treat it. But again, for this chapter, we only focus on a healthy financial market, how it look like, and what kind of policy we need to have to maintain a healthy market, and what is the potential problem are facing financial market. So let's look at learning objective of this chapter. So healthy and viable vibrant economy require financial system that move funds from people who save to people who have productive investment opportunity. Again, like I said, this channel is not well built in China. And at the end of the chapter, we were discussing more about the future of the financial market in China. And after learning this chapter, you should be able to identify 8 basic facts about the global financial systems. And so basically, all the theory, all the economic concept we're going to learn is try to explain the fact we saw on the global financial market. So we try to use economic theories and analyzing the market participant to analyze why we see the 8 basic facts. And then we're going to, after learning this chapter, you also will be able to summarize how transaction costs affect the financial intermediaries. So obviously, you're going to look at how we define the financial transaction costs, and so why the financial intermediary is so important to help us to reduce the transaction costs. And then we'll look at, you'll be able to describe why asymmetric information leads to adverse selection and moral hazard. And so for the attendance check of this week is related to the adverse selection and moral hazards. So make sure you have a right idea of what is considered as an adverse selection and what is considered as moral hazards, what are the differences, and what are the implications on the financial markets. And also, I've learned in this chapter, you will be able to recognize adverse selection and summarize the ways in which they can be reduced on the financial market. And also, you will be able to recognize the principal agent problem arising from moral hazard in equity contract and summarize the method for reducing it. And at the end, you will be able to summarize the method used to reduce moral hazard in debit contracts. So a lot of information. And so before you start next video, and hopefully you can sit there, think a little bit, and then to watch the next video. And we're going to talk about the transaction cost and the information cost.